a retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room. Wonderful Sunday evening. I'm so grateful each and every one of you are here with us. What a great weekend it's been so far, and we hope that the good Lord has blessed you and your family on your weekend. A big thank you to our amazing mods, Miss Sophia, Teresa M, Mimi J2, and Maui Girl. We thank you so much for everything you do. We cannot do this program without you. Another great shout out to our subscribers, our members, and our Patreon members. Without you, we are nothing, and we appreciate your support. All that we ask is that you hit the subscribe button and that you send this video on to your friends and your families. That's it. That's it. Our special guest tonight, he's back. Mr. Mark Tinsley, the attorney for the family of Mallory Beach. Mallory was 19 years old when she was killed in a 2019 boat wreck involving Paul Murdoch. Mark is a top-rated personal injury attorney with the law firm Gooding in Allendale, South Carolina. He's a 1998 graduate of the University of South Carolina Law School, and he's been selected numerous years in a row as a super lawyer. If you didn't get a chance to see him the last time, you go back and watch his presentation the last time he was here, as you guys know. This is an amazing man, and he's married. He married way up, and he's got his puppy behind him with Buddy behind me. It's going to be a great program, and we're going to have a lot to talk about. So with that, Mark Tinsley, welcome to the program again, my friend.
Thank you, Chris. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you here, my buddy. It really is. I feel like, there's great synergy here when you come onto the show, and I don't know what it is, but it's certainly not me. It's got to be you from your side on that end over there. So we're grateful for you.
I think it's just a conversation we had before we went on.
Yeah, I think it could be. It absolutely 100%. Hey, so first things first, I mean, obviously, your job is very difficult as a whole, and, you're working with, just some super colleagues as well as the courts, but you're representing a wonderful family whose daughter was lost. And I think I shared with you along, the last program, we lost a 20-year-old son, years ago. It's 2003, so this will be his 20-year anniversary. So we know the depth of that pain for that family, and our son was in an accident as well, but he was in an accident, not this type of accident. This was, an alcohol problem as well. But tell us.
I'm sorry to hear that, Chris. I
appreciate it. It never gets easy, but it does become manageable, for lack of a better term. And, God bless this family that you're working with. So how are they doing? Let me ask you that first of all.
It's tough. I think it ebbs and flows. The constant attacks from Parkers, and they're gonna try to disqualify me, or it's always something. It's always something. It appears in the media, social media, out of the blue. Even when they know it's not true, and then and they see it, I think there's a moment of panic and worry. And a lot of it's calculated on their part, the people that are doing it, and but they're steadfast, ready to go to trial in August.
Awesome. And you're 1,000% right. Social media has changed the dynamics to grieving. It really has, because it has just opened up all of these different avenues that can be utilized to re-victimize a family. I mean, I've seen it over and over again, having the opportunity on this program to talk with many families who have lost loved ones. And it's difficult. It's difficult. How do they cope? What do you know? I mean, I know you're on the law side of it, but at the same time, I know there's a personal relationship that's developed.
Yeah, I think they do pretty well. They rely on their faith heavily. They have a close family that helps as well, I think. It's even when you're going through something like that with someone, you're still going through it alone, and it's tough. And your loved one doesn't understand. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. It's just your perspective. And so it's a tough thing to do. And I think that the best that they can do is know that it's a tough thing to go through, and talk to people and get help from people who have, like yourself, have tried to muddle your way through it. So, I don't know. It's a terrible place to be. It's a terrible place to try to get through, and you feel helpless when you watch people sometimes go through those things. But the Beach family, they're really have been amazing. You'll hear me. I'm proud to represent the Beach family, not because of what they've gone through, but in spite of what they've gone through, who they are. Pretty inspirational.
Well, you're a class act, that is for sure, and I know that they have the right attorney on the game here for all the different curveballs that have been thrown at you. I mean, most recently with the court, the summary judgment. I mean, can you share a little bit about what you feel you can share about that recent court order?
Yeah, those motions aren't unusual. Usually, there could be a little substance to them. This motion was not that way. I think this motion was designed to spread a false narrative about the law, about the facts. Sometimes I think that the lawyers are intentionally obtuse. Other times I think they're just obtuse. But there's no question they think, Parker's side anyway, they believe that they've got a narrative that's going to appeal to someone, and they want to get them inflamed and hope they don't think. But there's nothing in the message that they're peddling that helps anybody except Greg Parker.
Mm-hmm.
Not one thing. Doesn't make anybody safer. It's not going to keep this from happening. In fact, he's trying to change the law and to be able to act with impunity. Obviously not because they plan on doing a better job. You don't need to go change the law so you won't be held liable in the next time someone dies or seriously injured when you sell alcohol to a minor, unless you're intending or planning to do it again.
Right. It's really interesting because, reading through that motion, I have to agree with you. There was just stuff out of left field. And it was like, what does this have to do with anything that wouldn't be in front of a jury? Let a jury decide some of this stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's exactly right. I mean, some people understand sort of what this motion is. The motion is they're questions for the judge to decide, questions of law, they're questions of fact for the jury to decide. The photograph, for instance, that the Parker's clerk looked at, whether that looks like Paul or looks like Buster, that's a question of fact. It's always a question of fact, and so there's no merit, and there's no real argument why a judge should rule on that. And so I don't think it was difficult for Judge Hall to deny the motion. I mean, he historically, if he says he's going to rule on a certain day, that's the day he ruled on. When there's not any merit or substance to it, he rules pretty quickly, and he ruled quicker than his deadline was on that motion.
I'll tell you what, if he's anything like our last judge in America here for the Murdoch case, I mean, man, you guys got some really solid people on the bench.
We do. Yeah, we do for sure. I mean, some of these concepts, these areas of the law are as complicated as they get. The joint and several, with some of the issues we've been arguing about. And, I suspect most lawyers don't necessarily want to be on YouTube or television or anything else, other platform, talking about their case at this stage. But this is a case that's always been tried and is being tried. Some of it by people like yourself who are genuinely interested in the truth. I mean, I think that's what we owe Mallory. We owe her the truth. But there's a lot of people out there, and there's a lot of people that are talking, screaming from the rooftops. And if they say it loud enough and enough times, they think that somebody's going to just not think and hear what they're saying. But there's a lot of people in this story. This is a tragic story. It's got no good ending. It doesn't make any difference what happens in August. It's still got a terrible ending. It's never going to end for the Beach family.
Yeah, it will never end, ever. And I mean, and here I am, my wife and I are an example of that. I mean, 20 years later, and we're still, every moment, it's always with you. So, no, even if whatever the judgment's going to be, that's not going to finish it. I mean, this is an eternal pain that, quite frankly, it's a difficult. So take us back to that fateful evening in in 2019. I mean, Karen and I went down there. We went down to the bridge. It connects right there to the Marine Corps Recruit Depot in Parris Island, and I looked at the spacing of all of the pylons and obviously, like everybody else, whatever was available on the internet in terms of looking at the photographs and stuff. And then I heard a boat reconstruction expert, accident reconstruction expert, and he said that there was a GPS and that it projected that he was going around 30 miles an hour on that water. I don't know, is that factual in nature, or is that just a hypothesis, speculation?
So the way the GPS, there is a GPS, and you can see the track from where the boat is launched at what's been referred to as the river house, the Murdoch River House. And within that track, you have these, some people call it a popcorn trail. You see these little points. You can click, if you're in the program, you can click within those points and get a position of the boat and the speed at different times. But the way the signal works, it bounces up and bounces back. And so the speed may or may not be accurate. I think it's 26 miles an hour, but there are places where it says the boat's going 43 miles an hour. Can't be going that fast. That boat won't go that fast with 6 people in it. But that's the GPS signal catching up with the location of the boat. So, but I think it's a fairly accurate speed. I mean, it's probably in the 20s when he's coming through there. What did you think? It's not as big as it looks like it is on TV, does it?
I'll tell you, it's a tight squeeze, and coming through there, I would even think in the low 20s or medium 20s. I mean, that's a dangerous speed coming through there, and to try to manipulate that. But what I also found interesting was there was another bridge earlier, right? Wasn't there, that he almost hit?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't see that on the GPS trail. I
Okay.
mean, I hear, like I said, there's lots of people spinning lots of stories, and I think that the facts are ultimately going to bear out whatever the facts are.
Mm-hmm.
The boat, so the boat is launched early in the evening. It goes to an oyster roast, and the oyster roast is probably, let's say by water, 4 or 5 miles from the day dock, which is downtown Beaufort. So, and it's not really a midpoint, but I'm going to call it a midpoint of the trip, because what we see is you can see the popcorn trail on the way to the oyster roast when they haven't really had any alcohol to drink, and you can see it all the way back. And Paul does a pretty good job following the same trail. And when you drive a boat at night, if you've ever been in smoke or fog, or just in your car in the dark, and you turn the headlights off, you can't see through the windshield.
Right.
So what you prefer to have when you're on the water is no light. So you use the ambient light. You can see, you can tell where you are in the creek. And this is a tidal creek, so the tide's up and down. There are oyster rakes, bars, sandbars, things you've got to navigate that you may or may not see because the tide's going out. They're there. It's an obstruction, but you can't really perceive it. And when you follow that track, Paul does a really good job all the way there, all the way back, maintaining generally the same speeds. Now, when they leave that night around midnight, the boat's going pretty slow. They're just putting along. I mean, this was supposed to be a date night. And at some point, they wanted to go downtown, and I think Paul wanted to have a shot. At least that's what the testimony is.
Mm-hmm.
It already had a lot of beer, and so you see surveillance video from the day dock. You see the boat come underneath the main bridge. They're coming out of Beaufort, headed over into Ladies Island. You see it come under the bridge, no problem. Come up, circles around, and ultimately docks, and they go in there. They're in Luther's about 9 minutes.
Okay.
They come back out. You got a bunch of kids, not a care in the world.
Is he still using the fake ID at that point?
He did use the same ID in Luther's, yeah.
Okay.
That he used to buy the alcohol at Parker's, which was his brother's ID.
Okay.
And, they get back in the boat. Now, as the crow flies, from the time they get in the boat to where the crash happens, I'd be surprised if it's much more than 1.5 miles.
Oh, interesting.
It's not far. And so 3/4 of a mile from downtown is the only other bridge they go under. He goes under that bridge in the middle of the pilings are more spaced out. They're really not pilings there. It's a big concrete structure, but he goes through that no problem, right in the middle of it, at least on the trail.
Okay.
And then when they exit the main river, they get into Archer's Creek, and the way that you go straight towards Paris Island, and then it parallels Paris Island, then it makes another dog leg, and then makes the final approach, which is just a straight shot to where you were there on the creek. But I mean, it's what happens when a 19-year-old kid's drunk and his girlfriend's angry at him. That's the problem. And that's the problem with kids drinking. Everything's fine until it's not.
Well, I read the testimony of some of the depositions, and it's really interesting because when you correlate that to the video of, it appears that he and his girlfriend are having this argument, and she's just kind of fed up with him, and he goes off, and they go into the pub there and get another drink, and then they come out. You can see that at least it appears on the video that he's sloshed, or at least on his way up there, and she's not having it at all. And it's interesting how that alcohol, to your point, I mean, he was a point, did he blow a .28 or did they take blood on him?
They took blood on him.
Okay, well, there you go.
That was several hours later. So yeah, it was it's a 28 or a 25, one of those two.
Yeah, so he's on his that BA is on its way up. Blood alcohol level is on its way up, and that's probably why they let him sit. What I thought was interesting is when the call came in, the 911 call came in, and you can hear just the horrible yelling of Connor and just everybody around looking for Mallory. And yet then you also have this dynamic where they're yelling at him for not taking it seriously. And the one interesting thing that I thought, from my experience level, was they sent somebody with him in the ambulance. And go ahead.
Yeah, no, he rode in the ambulance with Connor and Miley.
Right, but they sent a cop with him, didn't they?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Well, he was strapped to the gurney.
Right, but see, most people think that is because he's combative and or agitated and uncooperative. Okay, but there's also another side to that. Okay, and the other side of it is if he makes spontaneous statements, right? That there's an officer there to hear them and to document. So do we have any evidence of that in the ambulance, or can you even talk about that yet?
There are no statements of Paul that are documented by any law enforcement officer, to my recollection, that were at the scene initially responding. Now, there are some statements that may be attributed to the kids generally, but by the time he gets into the hospital, some of the hospital attendants attribute statements to him in written statements. But no, I don't think most of the law enforcement that responded, that's not why. They weren't looking to document how drunk he was, get him in front of a video camera. That's not what happened.
Any reason, do we know, or can you go that route yet?
Well, sure. I mean, I think I've gone that route. I mean, who he was.
Interesting. So the name of it itself.
Yeah.
You know what's fascinating when you hear that comment from the officer, who says, who this is, and good luck, right? Or something to that effect, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Anthony asked one of the sheriff's deputies if he knows who he is.
Yeah. Do you know where else we saw that same behavior? At the murder scene.
Yeah. If
we go back and we watch the body camera of the officers, the deputies that are there at the time, and they're all going, this Paul Murdoch, and Alex Murdoch. And you can just see this look of, well, good luck with that. And, God bless you for, some folks. I mean, I'm a straight shooter. I tell it the way it is. And, for law enforcement just to kind of blow that off when you have a missing 19-year-old in the water and go ahead.
Part of what they say is, so the sheriff's department's there, then Port Royal Police is there, there are MPs that are there responding because it's right there at the mouth of Paris Island. But the sheriff's deputies almost all say, we don't investigate boat crashes. We were just securing the scene. Well, I think it's generally accepted if you're just securing the scene, part of that is securing the evidence, document. The people who are going to investigate it won't be there for 2 hours. And you also know that things like video in the intoxicated driver that opportunity is going to be lost if you wait 2 hours.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's common sense. I mean, it's called the police academy.
Yeah.
You're right. Guys, let's talk about alcohol related incidents. And, I mean, if you've got, first of all, you've got people going to the hospital, with serious injuries. You've got, alcohol and all the other symptomologies that come around with it. The smell of alcohol, the dilated pupils, the red eyes, the slurred speech, yada, yada, yada. And you just go down the list of your training. Okay? And, nobody's thinking, hey, maybe we should throw some tape up here and lock this down while we're looking for this little girl. And I call her, excuse me, for, because she's somebody's child. Right. And she's only 19. And now you have this, this persona come into the scenario, and, they go out of protocol. I understand the MPs. That's not their jurisdiction. That's a different game. But the SO and whoever else was there right on the scene. And if I'm going to be interesting to see how this all comes out and how that plays out for you at the trial, because that is definitely out of protocol.
There's a lot of problems with law enforcement investigation. I mean, I even in the murder trial, I testified to the grand jury investigation, state grand jury investigation into the investigation of the crash, the criminal aspect of it. So,
and I'm 10,000% back the blue, 20,000%. Okay. But I don't want those people like that in the profession if they can't do the job, because here we're having a conversation about it and going, you got a 19-year-old girl who's dead, and you smell alcohol and you're not going through proper protocol. There's your boy right there. He's up behind you. I mean, it just goes again to show you the power that Murdaugh family was yielding.
Well, I mean, one of the things you said is that they're not competent. I don't think this was incompetency issues. I mean, these were deliberate decisions and the way things were handled. And there's going to be evidence that's going to come out that will show just that. I mean, these people acted deliberately, and they knew what they were doing or not doing.
And that's even worse, right? That's even worse. And did you sense some of that during Alex's trial when you were, the Judge Juman called you a tiger? Did you sense that they were trying to redirect, some of your testimony in relationship to what the truth was?
Alex lawyers?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. It's a frustrating thing to be a lawyer, to be a part of that, and whether you agree or disagree with the way it's being presented. I mean, there are certain things like the life insurance. I keep saying, like the life insurance. Why didn't we talk about the life insurance? The lack of life insurance. And then he gets up there and testifies he's got $12 million. And like, where? Show it to me. Like Mark Ball, his partner, said, show it to me. Yeah, the dog's up and he's just going to keep wandering around.
Oh, he's fine. He's good. He's good. Our TIR family loves the dog. So don't worry. If this one starts to, we just keep on going. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, but there were, I think we owe the dead the truth. Yes. Mallory deserves the truth. Paul and Maggie deserve the truth. The people who remain to try to pick up the pieces deserve the truth. And you got a lot of people that are not interested in the truth, telling the story, controlling the story, spinning the story, exploiting the story. And, I think eventually the truth's going to come out. Now, we don't always agree with the truth, but I think that it's going to be clear what happened, and that the responsible parties, the people responsible for Mallory's death, when it's done, will be held accountable.
Yeah, I mean, you've got video. They had video in the murders. You had Alex saying, I was there, I wasn't down there. And then all of a sudden, that shifted to, well, yeah, maybe I was down there, and that is my voice. Oops. And now you have Paul, who's clearly, it appears on this video, he's intoxicated. And you've got him going into a convenience store, handing his older brother, or what appears to be, based on the evidence and based on the testimony, that it was his brother's ID. And you have clearly him walking out of that store, a minor purchasing alcohol and holding it up in a gesture of, conquer.
Yeah.
I got it. I did it. When he walks out by the boat and he holds them, the alcohol up.
And the other miners he's signaling to the other miners in the parking lot.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's, and if we go back, in life, how many times I can tell you, I was a vice detective from 1984 to 1986. I know I've got good genes, Mark. I know I don't look like that. And, we used to hang out at the liquor stores, just watch the kids, kind of hit, trying to go in and get a hit like that. And they come out, conquerors.
Yep.
But in this case, it's a fatality. And, it just makes it even worse. So the other thing that I'm going to ask you about, the pylons in of itself, I mean, that impact had to be, at what speed have you guys been able to figure out that would have launched the folks out of the boat?
Well, it's just physics, right? I mean, if you're traveling at 20 miles an hour or 25 miles an hour, the boat first impacts what's called the dolphin head. So if you recall, there are 3 pylons that are sort of lashed together in front of the bridge.
I saw that.
And I think that the main purpose is to sort of break up debris so that in these tidal creeks, you don't get all the weeds and debris that hang up on the bridge itself. But so it hits the dolphin head, and it's like a seesaw, a lever. I mean, the people in the front of the boat don't feel a whole lot of the impact. They do, but the people in the back of the boat, and most of the movement is in the back of the boat. It's sort of the opposite of where's the smoothest place to ride going. Well, it's in the back where the boat's doing the least moving, over the rough waves. And so when the boat strikes the pylon, Mallory and Anthony are thrown out. Paul is standing up. The boat itself is a center console, but the steering wheel is off to Paul's side, so he's very close to the edge. Easy for him to flip out, she strikes her head, most probably on that dolphin head, and then the boat gets redirected hard to the right and sort of goes up on the bank there. As the tide recedes and the boat's left on the rocks there at the base of the bridge.
So it's like this and then this, almost
Yes.
like a careening situation.
Yep.
And it does it look, I mean, the damage looks like it was to the majority of it was on what side exactly?
It's almost in the center, but a little bit to the left side, so the driver's side.
Okay. And so it would be kind of like this here.
That's right.
And keep me honest, okay? Does that look right? Like he's deflecting, like he impacts and it deflects off.
That's right. And and it's, I don't know, it's not very far, 10 or 12 feet to the right where
Right.
it strikes next the pylon. So it almost makes a 90-degree turn, just straight in and then 90s over onto the bank. It hits.
And who's launched out at that point? We know Mallory, and Connor. Does Connor go in the water too?
No. So Connor is to the right of the center console. There's some rod holders.
Okay.
There's a bar. He gets thrown into those. He breaks his jaw. He's got a laceration. to the left side, and those rod holders on the right-hand side are broken as he's thrown into them. You know, again, it's just physical evidence that indicates he wasn't behind the wheel. So Paul goes out, Anthony and Mallory. Anthony is Mallory's boyfriend.
His boyfriend, right?
They both go out. So the two girls in the front and Connor stay in the boat, and then the ones in the back, and then Paul go out.
So he hits those rod holders and busts his jaw wide open. And and did he have to get a lot of surgery for that to this date?
I think he had a plate put in. It wasn't not a he had a fracture in his jaw, sort of about somewhere right in here.
Oh my!
Where he was thrown into it. He had surgery for it.
Wow. And what about, didn't one of the girls have a pretty heavy laceration or cuts?
So Morgan Dowdy was sitting in the front of the boat, and her hand suffered a pretty significant injury. I think she's had 3 surgeries on that. It was almost like a deglove sort of injury. Her hand is mashed between the boat and the piling.
And then, of course, the worst. I mean, Mallory's deceased, and they find her, what, 5 to 10 days later?
I think it's 8 days.
8 days later, which is about right based on the currents and the body. Unfortunately, you know, the gas expanding and bringing the body up.
She was about 5 miles away.
Yeah, that's very, very sad. I mean, my career was in Southern California, so we had Scripps La Jolla, where I was in the San Diego area. So we used to actually go down there and talk to the doctors about the currents. So if somebody ever fell off a pier, or if they jumped, or if they were, you know, ever thrown into the water, those currents they've got that whole Pacific Rim figured out over there where that body potentially could show up. And so it's just horrible, just horrible. Yeah. So now then they're up, the 911 call comes in, they're transported to the hospital. And I think we've all seen the video in the court trial of Alec Murdaugh showing up at the hospital with his, you know, badge, and he's utilizing it for influence into the emergency staff, as well as trying to get into the rooms to have conversations with the youth. What's your takeaway now post-trial when you look back on that?
Well, you know, he was trying to control what was happening. And the biggest thing he needed to control was the kids and access to the kids. I mean, he has that badge clipped to his side. They're in the hospital. There's surveillance video. And I don't remember in the murder trial if they just used stills or they played some of it. I remember the stills. I think I was traveling when Creighton was crossing Alec on some of that. And I don't remember the video, but there's video in all the common areas. So you see the entrance and exit door, you see the hallways outside the rooms, and you can see him just making his rounds back and forth. He's constantly on the phone, in and out of the room. He's not tending to Paul, he's tending to the situation. He has that badge clipped to his side early on. He gets there within minutes after Paul's put in his room. And they stay for a couple hours.
Do we know how he was contacted? Who contacted him? Is that public knowledge yet?
No, it's not. I don't think it's public knowledge. I'm not 100% certain who contacted him. As I sit here right now, I mean, I may know, but I don't. I'd tell you if I knew. I just can't remember.
Okay.
There's a flurry of phone calls starting, about 2:30 that morning.
And so the grandfather and Alex shows up.
Right.
And immediately, they're in an official capacity, it appears, because, they're flashing official badges and the lanyard that the grandfather's wearing. You know, interesting.
It's pretty clear that that people recognize Randolph, the grandfather, in the video. I mean, it's apparent that they recognize him, and he spends most of his time there in the room at the doorway where Paul's being tended to. And Paul didn't have any real injuries. He's just some minor scratches. He had his clothes off when he went in the water, so he ended up getting some scratches, apparently on the barnacles of the pilings as he got out or something.
Why were his clothes off?
Apparently that was the thing he would do when he'd get drunk and angry. So,
okay, let's go over that. Break that down.
Yeah. If you've heard some of the video there from the scene with the Anthony and that officer asked him, the one with no clothes on, that's Paul. So Paul comes out of the water with no clothes on. He goes into the water with no clothes on. Well, he's got his boxers on or whatever those he was wearing. And then when you see him wheeled in, strapped to the gurney at the hospital, he's still just wearing his underwear.
What did the Murdochs say about all of that, or what were they saying to the kids? Do we know?
Well, so I don't know that Alec really was ever able to speak to Morgan, which was Paul's girlfriend. I mean, he talked to her a little bit, but I don't think she didn't want him in there, and the nursing staff wouldn't let him come in the room, and they kept him out, and they threatened to have him removed if he continued to try to get in. So I don't think she really had much of a conversation. I don't believe Miley did either. Now Connor testified that Alec told him just to keep his mouth shut, and he had him. Words to that, I got you, I think is what he testified.
Interesting. It kind of shows a very specific pattern. If you were to do a behavioral profile analysis of this, I think there are so many commonalities between all of these incidences. I mean, even going back to the porch situation with the young lady there falling down the stairs.
Yeah, Gloria said.
Yeah, the misstated, right. And the dog, now all of a sudden the dog's not in the play. But, early on the dog was in the play, right?
Yeah.
And
I don't, they've got some agenda in that. I don't, it's more than I can keep up with to try to figure out what they're doing and all that nonsense. It's just a bunch of noise to me at this point in terms of the back and forth between Eric Bland and Jim. And
yeah, no worries. I mean, the focus here is Mallory, and we're, at the hospital, you can clearly see that he is moving around. I mean, I've seen the videos, the available video in the public arena, and of course, we're all watched the court trial. But it's going to be interesting. And folks, if you're just joining with us tonight, I've got super lawyer Mark Tinsley with us tonight, and I mean, not only is he just a dynamic human being, and honest as they come, as you know, Judge Newman called him, a tiger by the tail. But you went to both universities too, so you've got a Gamecock and you've got a Clemson Tiger. So
that's right.
How do you deal with that? You got a double shirt that you cut in half?
No, man, I wore an orange backpack when I went to Carolina.
I love it. So if you're just joining with us, there's a poll in the chat. Make sure you hit that poll. We're just curious because I'm going to ask the question towards the end here, but I'll ask it right now. Do you think Alex is going to want to get up on the stand in Mallory's trial?
Well, I don't think it's a question that he wants to. Now, whether he attends live or he testifies by video, that I don't know the answer to. But no, I think if he has his way, he'll testify.
Are you having dreams about that?
You know, the Parker's lawyers are chomping at the bit to depose Alec, and lots of people ask me, "Are you going to depose him?" He is a gifted serial liar. You go give him 2 months to figure out the answers to your questions, and come August, he'll have them. No, I'm not going to. I mean, I'm going to go. I'm going to watch it. I seriously doubt I'll ask any questions, not because I don't have questions, just because I'm not going to give him the playbook.
That's a wise move, my friend. That's why you're good at what you do. Yeah, he'll adapt and improvise.
For sure.
In every comment that comes out. And you know what's interesting about him, if you go back and we watch, right, his testimony, is he asks the question, I mean, and then he pauses. And then when he kind of gets you to kind of say something, then he dovetails into your comment, and then he'll manipulate it to sound like it's real. And it's like,
Yeah.
man, that was pretty good. He was a dead giveaway in the car, with the detective from, SLED. I loved watching that piece of it. I really did. He was toast. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I thought so too. But and when he first started to testify, I thought this was the worst move ever. But once he got his feet under him, I had to turn it off. I was afraid people were going to see through that, because I mean, he asked these things. I can't remember for certain. There's all these little tales that if you know him, you see when he, certain witnesses take the stand and he's just beaming, smiling at them, and it's a way of manipulation.
Yeah.
And he's gifted. I mean, he if you give him enough time, and he'll win some people over. But I was very happy and proud that those people saw through him.
Yeah, he's the persuader.
He is.
He'll come into a room and, the politician, right? He'll high five everybody, and that's his gift. That's his gift. And you're right. We are glad that people saw through him. I mean, Ted Bundy was a nice guy too.
Yeah.
The judge even, the judge even said, Mr. Bundy, if had you gone to law school, I'd love to have you practice in front of my court. And this is after he sentenced him to death.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, there you go. And Alex was running that night. And so the other thing that really bothers me is the family of Mallory was at the crime scene, and it is a crime scene. And Alec and his family just is let under the tape, and they're standing outside. Tell us about those emotions.
Renee has talked about that a time or two, being there on the causeway. So there's the bridge going into Paris Island. The main road is built up, and so it's up on this causeway. And I assume at one point in time, many years ago, there was a bridge that was lower, and so there's a road down beside the bridge going to the base of the bridge where the boat actually was. And they had that cordoned off, and I don't know if it's Monday or if it's Sunday, but it's early. So the boat crash happened Saturday night, early Sunday morning, and they're looking for Mallory, and Renee wants to go down to where her daughter died. She just wants to go down there. And she's told, no, it's a crime scene. You can't go down there. And then a few minutes later, literally a few minutes later, she comes back to her car, and then Maggie, Alec's wife, being driven by Randolph, Alec's father, waved under the tape, and they go down to the bridge for about 15 minutes. And she thought nothing was going to happen. That was going to get away with it at that moment.
I can't imagine the emotions and the damage internally. And I'm speaking from my own experience of watching that. If I would have seen that happen, I think you would have had to, put me in get me out of there, because I would have been furious.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And I think any reasonable human being will understand that emotion of a mother who is seeking her child, and all of a sudden the cops are telling you, hey, this is a crime scene, you can't come in here. And then all of a sudden the driver of that car or the boat, alcohol related incident, shows up, and it's like carte blanche, come on in here. Well, that's called cross contamination. Number one, okay? If they declared it as a crime scene, anybody coming into that wasn't there that night has just cross contaminated all of that evidence, and therefore that evidence potentially could get tossed in a criminal trial had it gone that route. In fact, any judge in their right mind would have said, well, what did she touch? Did she touch the boat? Did she take pictures? If so, where are those pictures? It could be exculpatory evidence to, anybody. Where are those photographs? Yada yada, and you go down the line. I looked over when I was underneath that bridge, and I saw this little memorial. It looked like a single flower, and there was a light. I don't know who put that there, but somebody loves this girl deeply. Many friends, I'm sure. Um, you know,
Yeah. No, there's a lot of people who love her now. I'm getting attacked.
yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I've got buddies right underneath me too, Mark, to be honest with you. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, it was amazing thing to watch the outpouring of support in the community. I mean, not just Hampton, Beaufort, but all over. I mean, there were people that were involved in the search, looking for Mallory for days. Um, the two gentlemen that found her were two brothers, and they left that morning to look for Mallory. They didn't know Mallory. They didn't know the Beach family. But yeah, she's touched a lot of people, and I think when people see and hear from the Beach family and the depth of their humanity, the depth of their uh, faith in how they're dealing with this, and just how inspirational they've been in handling the loss that they've gone through. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and it's they are obviously a class act. They've listened to you. They've stayed very low, and God bless them for that, because people would take shots at them on the social media aspect of things. But so that aside, let's talk about um, real fast the court dates coming up. Not necessarily what you expect, but kind of give us a little insight into how the court's going to proceed going forward.
Are you asking me whether it's going to be televised?
Yeah, I am.
Uh,
You read my mind.
I think more likely than not is the answer right now. I mean, we don't know 100% with certainty. I know that two different networks are interested in doing it. It sounds like when we had the summary judgment motion, there were a number of film crews that were there, and I think the judge said, for now, there's no live streaming, which seemed to suggest that there was going to be live streaming eventually. So my guess is it's going to be televised, and I think Court TV is going to carry it. If not, I think Dateline's interested in carrying it.
Okay. So are you up for a couple of questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So this one here is, I read that Paul stripped off his clothes, gunned the boat at the bridge, and jumped off right before he. Is that true?
The clothes part's true. Gunning the boat part about 2.5 minutes before the crash. the boat was gunned. But no, he didn't jump off. I don't think that's true.
Okay. And this one's more of a comment. I think Alex wanted to offer those kids the same thing he offered the Satterfields. Yeah, that's interesting comment for sure. Interesting comment. And a new YouTube. Okay, hang on. Let me get over here. Guys and gals, if you have some questions, go ahead and throw them in there. And Miss Sophia, if you can tag them, and that way I can pull them up as they come in. What other rumors do you want to squash? Kind of keeping the flow of information, correct and current.
Now I got some feedback just then. They say when the law's on your side, you argue the law. When the facts are on your side, you argue the facts. If you don't have the law and the facts, apparently you attack the victims. These were kids. I mean, they were kids, and there's a reason that it's illegal to drink in all 50 states if you're less than 21 years of age. You do not appreciate the significance of it. I'm not saying that 19 or 20-year-olds don't possess the mental faculties to know if they're doing something wrong, but they don't think they think they're going to be able to get away with it. And there's certain things in this world that when it goes wrong, a dog, for instance, I mean, we're talking about dogs. If a dog bites a child, it's a bad thing. If someone's involved in an alcohol-related fatality, a crash or incident, it usually results in a fatality, a catastrophic injury. And just the significance of alcohol-related fatalities before we outlawed people under 21 drinking versus after, I don't know how anybody can ignore that fact. So, these people they are kids, as you pointed out, they're kids. And did they make the same decision you at 50-something years old would make? Probably not. I suspect that no drunk person ever got behind a wheel thinking, tonight's the night I'm going to run into somebody. Tonight's the night I'm going to kill somebody.
That's right.
It's a sad situation, and I hope that.
I mean, so many lives have been shattered because of just that. I mean, kids are kids, but at the same time, there are things in place that circumvent that, right? In terms of, at least there's supposed to be stop signs in our society. And one of those stop signs is just that, an ID. You go into a place where alcohol's being sold. The clerk has a responsibility, just like a bartender has a responsibility to say, let me see your ID.
Well, absolutely. But the people that are selling it, the vendor, the Parkers of the world, they've got a responsibility not just to train their people, but to make sure that they're doing it.
Absolutely.
And Parkers, they had been warned in another alcohol-related fatality that they were sued in, that their people weren't being properly trained. The lady who sold the alcohol to Paul, she hadn't been trained at all.
Yeah, and by the way, that was a common practice for Vice to go to these locations and make sure that you would go in and for a bar, for an example, and you do what's called a bar check, and ABC Alcoholic Beverage and Control Acts, which in where I used to my jurisdiction, but we would go in and talk to the clerk and then talk to the bartenders and say, look, what point to cut somebody off, and what point to ask for ID and validate the ID. And you can look, for some IDs, I don't know what South Carolina says, I got to look at mine. But long story short, there's holograms and stuff that you can validate if it looks legit. And then you can go like this, just hold it out and, wait a minute, nice try, kid, hit the road, Jack. And
Well, but you said it. I mean, you still have to validate the ID, and that doesn't mean is the birth date right. You know, if you're an underage person trying to buy alcohol, you're not going to go get an ID from somebody that doesn't look anything like you if you're going to borrow an ID.
right.
So at least a modicum of diligence is required by the people that are looking at it. And you can't just, and, you know, these cashiers were told they could rely merely on this point of sale scanner, which just checks the birthday. They weren't looking at them. When asked how many times have you identified a fake ID or a borrowed ID, you know what the answer was? While you're working, zero, never. Never taken an ID, never seen a fake ID, never had one presented to you. I mean, this is, yeah, the amount of tourists that come in here in this area, along, you know, the beaches here and the alcohol sales related to that, it's just not statistically possible.
Well, you have another one right there in the Charleston area, right, with Mickelson and Dalton, who's handled that with the bride getting nailed, you know, and hit. So, and they're, by the way, they're friends of mine. I know both. Good. Brian and Danny up there. But long story short, you've got this whole, you know, industry that, quite frankly, to your point, there are stopgaps, and that is the proper training, as well as just the other things that they're told, and they should have been told if they haven't been, is if you smell alcohol, okay, then you also have a responsibility to make sure that you're not selling alcohol to an intoxicated person.
Yeah.
And you have to refuse the sale and say, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here, but can't sell this to you. And so that leads me to the bar. Are the bars in the action here, the civil action?
So the bar where they drank, you know, Paul had consumed, I think 19 drinks, including the 2 shots.
Wow.
That he got at Luther's. But he had a lot to drink before he had those 2 shots. And so the bar was in. The bar has settled the claims against it with the same ID that Paul used at Parker's.
I can't get any better than listen to Miss Corky go, wow. And, you know, that is a lot of alcohol for a 19-year-old. Yeah. What was his body weight? And
140 pounds.
140 pounds. And they pulled a BA on him, and it was 2.8.
I think it was 2.8. And then with the conversion for the serum, it ends up being like a 0.25, which is, you know, still 3 times that. Well, there's no legal limit for him, but it would be 3 times.
You know, that's going to be interesting to have an expert talk about the plasma life of the alcohol, you know, that, and what folks, so that you understand what that means. It means how long will the alcohol stay in your blood system, and the tolerance levels in relationship to somebody that could still function at a 2.8.
I'd be in the hospital if I was at a 25, much less a 28. I mean, you know, you're getting up there where the toxicity is such that death is not unreasonable. So
yeah, I mean, alcohol poisoning.
Yeah, he's all indications where he was a fairly significant drinker.
Man, oh man. And that lays down the foundation of what's the enabling behaviors long before this. And we'll let you, I'm sure, lay that foundation later on in this amazing trial that's going to be coming here. And by the way, and I know you, and I'm not speaking for you, but I'm just speaking my opinion that you know, you're seeking the truth for the family, and whatever that truth is. I mean, it doesn't. You know, people forget that sometimes things happen. I mean, our son left my house at 2:00 in the morning, and we were at, you know, in our situation, and our phone rang, and he was gone, like 8 hours later. And it's one of these things that, you can't unring that bell. It just happens, and it doesn't make life any easier, but it just happens. And this is one of these situations where and I keep going back to this, there had to be some type of responsibility, and folks need to take that accountability and step up and say, look, we could have done more, and here's the reasons why. And at the same time, we can't bring back Mallory. But at the same time, we can tell you these are the things we've put into place. Let me take a guess. Have they instituted anything since the tragedy here? Have Parker's done anything to mitigate further tragedies?
Not to my knowledge, but now they may have done some things that I don't know about.
Okay. So this is Kimberly just says, is Murdaugh related to the W.V. Murdaugh's, West Virginia Murdaugh's? Marshall M. Murdaugh became influential in Kansas City. Lots of private airstrips there, and another untouchable family in drugs and money laundering. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't know anything about it. It looks like it's spelled two different. I can barely see all of it. Spelled two different ways. So,
yes, it is. Thank you, Kimberly, for that question and your kindness there. Let's see here. This one is, and I don't know if you want to get into this. There's a GoFundMe. Mark, can you address a GoFundMe, because there is someone in the chat spreading misinformation about a GoFundMe account? I didn't see it, Mark. But
GoFundMe for who?
For Mallory? Is there a GoFundMe for Mallory?
There's Mal's Pals, which is a charity that was set up in Mallory's honor to hopefully help fund the building of an animal shelter in Hampton County. But I don't know about any. I don't think there's a GoFundMe. There's just it's a 501c3 and a charity, and they sell T-shirts and different things and accept donations. But yeah, I don't.
So it sounds like, guys, if there is a GoFundMe, do not go there. Go to the other 501c3, and we'll make sure, Mark, that we put that into our links below so that we can help draw some attention and some funding to that charity. Karen and I both love going, and we paid our respects at her gravesite, and we saw the little paw prints on her headstone there. It's
that inscription on her headstone was something she had actually written on a chalkboard in her room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The whole thing is taken directly from what she had drawn herself. That's her handwriting.
Wow. Tell us more about her.
I wish I knew more about her. I mean, I know that everybody that I've talked to, whether they're young or old, black or white, the people that knew her, without exception, just talk about what a vibrant life she led and how happy she was. I see her in these videos, and that I have, whether it's her and her father or her fooling around. She just seemed like a genuinely loving person and a happy person, and just missed by everyone. I was at the church when they received friends right before the funeral, and I think I got there about the time that it would have started, and the line was out the door and around the building, and 3 hours later when I got through the line, it was longer then than it was when I got there. I don't know how many thousands of people went through that line to pay their respects to the family that night, but it was a lot.
Wow, man, that's heavy, and just what an honorable tribute, though, to her, for the community to gather around. And go ahead, what were we going to say?
No, there were a lot of people that obviously thought a lot about her, and still do.
So there's a question here about there it is. How's Anthony now?
I think Anthony does pretty good. You know, I mean, Anthony's lawyer is a guy named Pat Carr, and Pat talks frequently about how Anthony's doing and trying to move on. I mean, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, right? And dealing with it in this sort of glare and spotlight, and it's a lot. It's a lot for anybody to go through, much less a kid who's just sort of figuring his way as he goes.
Yeah, I can't comprehend what that young man's going through. It's going to be definitely something that's going to, it's going to frame his life. I mean, there's a, and I'm going to hack it up here, but there's an old saying about, I read it in a book one day, the old Irish proverb about death. And it essentially says, and I'm going to hack it up, so don't throw me under the bus, YouTube, okay, or in the chat or anything. But essentially it goes, here we stand upon the shore, and we look out over into the horizon, and we see a ship. And we say to ourselves, there she goes. However, we fail to remember and we fail to forget, on the other side of the horizon, in another destination, are equally those who stand and say, here she comes. And, sometimes there are times where life in of itself, we just don't understand it. We don't get it. And this is one of those times. And you are not only an honorable man working with this family, but, you have been through your own Gethsemane, and you've lived it. It radiates from you, and I think that's what people see when they see Mark Tinsley. And I can only imagine what you're like in the courtroom based on what the judge says. But you're a genuine human being, and we're all flawed, but simultaneously your heart's in the right place. I'm honored to always have you on here, and I don't know what more to say, to be honest with you. I think we should wrap it up. And
I appreciate it. I do. I appreciate it very much. And, as far as me in the courtroom, I think when I stand up, my brain and my mouth stop communicating. So there's no telling what's going to happen.
I think my wife will tell you that just happens at the dinner table with me. So you're in good shape. Okay, as tradition, you have the final word, Mr. Mark Tinsley. I'm going to pull out of the screen here, and I'm going to give you whatever time you want. Talk about anything you feel that comes to your heart. And then at the conclusion of your statements, our tradition here on the interview room is to go to Hawaii. And so I have a song that I play, takes everybody to Hawaii. And that said, guys and gals, thank you so much. So hit the subscribe and share button and do all of that good stuff. We're grateful. And Mark, thank you. Will you come back again? Mark, will you come back again?
I will come back again.
Okay.
I will. I'll come back. After the trial in August, I'll come back. How about that? We can talk about all the things I can't talk about now.
Absolutely. And we look forward to catching up again. Okay, I'm out, and you're.
Again, I've received just a tremendous number of people who've reached out to me and said kind things to me and supported me in this endeavor. And, it is. I do have a job, and this is my job, but it's more than that for me. And we're looking for the truth in all this. And I think the truth is going to prevail, and the Beach family is going to be happy with the answer. But thank you. Just thank all of you.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7. driving, babe. No timeouts. Wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah. Make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away. You and me go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll